welcome to this very special episode of Scrutinized Tech. I am back after a little bit of a hiatus concerning this series, and I have a very special computer to present to you. This is a JDM laptop exclusive to Japan, and it was actually a huge success in Japan, but not outside of Japan. I managed to import this to the States, and it's probably the only one in the States as far as I know of. There is no English video on this laptop in existence, so I want to change that starting this new year. And this video has actually been kind of painstaking to make. First of all, I had a rush, like towards the end of December, to get all this shit together. Footage was shot several different days, and plus I had to get some benchmarks all before it was too late. So I had to just do a whole ton of shit before, like, everything, before, like, I reached the time limit. So I have to upload this before 11:59 2021. But yeah, this is going to be a very special video. This laptop was actually pretty nice. It was a bestseller in Japan. I think it sold around 1 million units, if I'm not mistaken. Although that doesn't sound too good. I'd have to actually look at the real numbers because there is a report on that on the Dynabook website. I just have to look deep again. But this isn't a Toshiba Qosmio. This is a Toshiba Dynabook Qosmio because it's exclusive to Japan. Unlike the international version of this laptop, also called the Qosmio F20, it was actually sold in Japan with a different paint scheme. The one internationally was sold in black, as shown here, but the one sold in Japan was white, as shown here. But yeah, this laptop is pretty cool, and I'd love to take a look at it. Now, this is this voiceover is being done after like filming and everything, and I noticed that I do ramble on for a little bit. So just keep in mind that there's a lot of like useless information you probably don't want to hear, but just bear with me here. It's going to be a very interesting video. Uh, don't turn away from the video. This is actually one of my most ambitious videos yet. Um, this is just being done like really, really tight on schedule. And I don't know if I can do that kind of thing again. But yeah, I had to go through fucking 2 flash drives just to get the footage on my Mac. I don't have good editing software, and currently I'm only familiar with iMovie, so I'm gonna have to use this shitty ass software to do it. But I just want to show you the laptop itself, not provide you with a super hyper thorough video, because I know I will never be able to achieve that. So just sit back and enjoy the video. So let's talk about the specs on this laptop, and then we'll get to the actual part of the video that's interesting. So these are the specifications for this laptop. This has an Intel Celeron M360J processor clocked at 1.4 gigahertz. That may not sound like a lot, but it's okay. It's single core, of course. It's Celeron M, 512 gigabytes of DDR SD RAM, kind of basic for the time. Now, this has a this has been upgraded to 2 gigabytes of RAM, but it was originally sold with 512 megabytes of SD RAM. But anyway, this thing came with a 256 gigabyte hard drive, which this thing still has. But here's where things get interesting. The screen on this laptop is a little bit different than other laptops from the time. Here's the thing. This laptop was being sold alongside other media center laptops with a resolution like 1024 by 768. Well, this one went above and beyond and included a 1280 by 800 display. That is like way better than a lot of other competitors. This thing has, of course, Intel 910 GML Express for graphics, and I guess I could mention the optical drive. It does have a standard DVD RAM drive. In other words, it has full rewritable capabilities, so you can put in a CD-RW disc or a DVD-RW disc. It is accepting of that format. But besides that, there's not really much of interest. That's the basic shit that most people wants to know, and I think that's about all I need to show you. Now, one more thing before I begin the normal portion of this video. This laptop um, has like a lot of Japanese labels, which I was unable to translate. So unless I know Japanese, I don't know what they say. They could say something important regarding the laptop, but I could not find anything because I do not speak Japanese. But I am just using for what I have. So enjoy. Alright, so this is the main event of the episode. This is the Toshiba Qosmio, well, Toshiba Dynabook Qosmio F20/573LS. Let me take a look at this thing and show you around it. So, what's so special about this laptop? Well, first of all, it's a JDM model. This was not sold in America. Let me elaborate. There was an F20 that was sold in America, and F25, of course, which is the American, I think, exclusive model. But here's the crazy part. That was the black model. This is the white model, exclusive to Japan. Let me give a background on this laptop. It actually sold really well in Japan. It was as much of a success as a standard Dell is here, or I guess was. In Japan, this is basically the closest people could get to a full-on high-end multimedia PC for the price of a mid-range. So they attempted to sell this thing with the open price strategy, and it actually succeeded really well. And this thing sold so many units in Japan, but very few actually make it outside of there. So I'm lucky to even have this thing here. Unfortunately, things went wrong when I received this unit. This one well, it did have the Japanese installation, but turns out whoever freaking tried to import this, whoever the seller was, they actually managed to install a language pack on XP that corrupted the operating system. So I had to reinstall Windows XP. I tried to salvage whatever I could. I only managed to salvage Qosmio AV Center, and I don't even know if that works or not. Because I know if you move a Acer Arcade to another computer, it ends up not working. You have to do a full reinstallation. I dug deep as much as I could through hidden folders and everything, but I could not find like the original installation file for Qosmio AV Center. So I just grabbed it directly from program files, and I really hope that it's saved. But nevertheless, here it is. In Japan, the black painted version was also sold. There were actually 3 versions of the Qosmio F20. The lowest end model is this series right here, which is white. Then there's the mid-range model, which is painted black but features the same specs and I think a better capture card. I'm not sure. Maybe a better quality screen, although this one is pretty high quality anyway. But then there's the high-end version, which is identical to the Qosmio F25 and international market F20. So it's a little weird. Although every single driver that's listed on the American F25 Dynabook website for the support for drivers, they're all compatible with this. So I was able to install like the OEM drivers for the F25, and they work on here. Well, except for the graphics, because that's NVIDIA, but this thing has integrated graphics, and I'll explain why in a second. This thing, because it has integrated graphics, I had to just go to Intel's website. I mean, it's really common. I mean, it's a very common chipset anyway, so I just went to Intel's website, downloaded the driver, blah, 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 and boom, I got this thing fully working. I don't know much. I won't be doing internet on this thing. I'll just be doing benchmarks or something. I don't know. But this is the machine itself. You can tell that it has a pretty nice design. On first glance, it may look thick as hell, but it's actually not. It's thin compared to its competition. But what really matters the most is that it cools well. It actually does a really good job at cooling itself. Throughout usage and reinstallation of Windows XP, I just leave computers to install on their own with little interference except when I need to insert something. And it didn't overheat, actually. Not at all. It was working really well with 0 issues. And the cosmetic condition of this one is excellent. I don't think there's any like discrepancy in the cosmetic besides these scratches up here, but I don't think that's noticeable too much. But that's probably because it's set in storage or was stacked up in a collection or something. I'm not sure. What I do know is that this came straight from Japan. I'm the first American owner of this one. I'm possibly the only person in the United States with this variation. This is the absolute original F20, and it has the original specs and everything, which is absolutely incredible. I cannot believe I may be the only person in America to own this version of it. This is a JDM model. Yes, that's right. This is exclusive to Japan. The white paint is how you can tell right away, without even looking at the Dynabook logo, that this is the Japanese one. And let's talk about the design before we even get to the ports. So I like how the top has this silver plastic finish. They try to mimic aluminum, but maybe they should have used aluminum. But I guess I'm glad they didn't, because there would be dents, because that's a very common thing with aluminum. So here's the thing. Most of it is white plastic, except on the other side, which is standard black plastic. Let me talk about that real quick. If you can see here, this is white plastic. This is gray painted plastic, although you can see the paint is peeling off and you can see the original white plastic. Let me flip this over. As you can see, the bottom is black plastic, but what about the back? Well, it's actually kind of split. Literally down the middle. White plastic, black plastic. So this is actually kind of strange. This is where the design really becomes a little confusing, per se. This right here is the Qosmio logo. Okay, that's pretty standard stuff. You already know how the Qosmio logo looks like. But do you see anything weird? I mean, one thing is no Toshiba logo, but that was just because Toshiba was trying to make this seem like a separate brand. But look at all that empty space on the lid. They could have made a much larger Qosmio logo, but they chose not to. They just made a little logo like that and left this entire thing blank. I don't know if they were going for minimalism or to save costs on ink. I'm not sure. But that's what they did. I'm a little confused about it. I like it, but I also don't. Half and half on this. I'm really confused about this. I really want to know what their thinking was, their reasoning, whatever. Okay, so we're not done with the design portion of the video yet. Let's take a look at the inside of the laptop. Alright, so taking a look at the inside of the laptop for its design, you can see some pretty standard stuff here. There is one latch to open this entire thing. I know some Toshiba laptops had a double latch, but most of them were single latch. You can see here straight away, boom, Japanese keyboard. So you can see the Dynabook logo right here in the corner. The Dynabook logo has remained unchanged throughout all of Dynabook as a brand's existence, as far as I remember. This has a Celeron M processor. Of course, I'll get to that in a minute and why that's important. This, of course, has a sticker that's exclusive to Japanese sold products. And, of course, Energy Star, because, well, yeah, it still has to follow U.S. regulations and shit. It's just a mishmash of weird regulation stuff. International devices still have to follow like international electronic regulations. It's just messed up to a degree I cannot explain. But anyway, you can see here it actually has a decent sized trackpad. Before you say, oh, it's small, well, this is how most trackpads were at the time, but this is a pretty nice size. My finger is pretty large, so this is actually not too bad. The mouse buttons feel a bit too clicky. Well, that's not a bad thing. It's not good for wear, but I like the feel of it. It feels nice and solidly built. Actually, touching this whole case, nothing feels cheap or hollow. This plastic is really well made. I didn't see any like bending or anything. This thing is holding together really nicely. This is some high quality plastic that like Nintendo would have used for their products. This is one of the most well-built laptops I've ever touched. Another thing to note here is that this keyboard feels really nice. I have to replace this eventually because even though this is cool to have this JDM thing, I can't use this thing until I replace the keyboard. but you can probably capture the camera, the enter key. You can see the original color of the keyboard is this gray, but you can see the enter key and maybe some of the function keys, if the camera can pick it up, are yellowed. So here's the thing. If those keys manage to get yellowed, but not the case itself, but the rubber feet were, and I just repainted them, but if those things were able to get yellowed, but the rest of it didn't, that means that this either must be painted plastic or must be literally yellowing proof or whatever the fuck. This is just strange. But I'm not too familiar with the Japanese keyboard layout. I mean, I know how the Japanese keyboard layout works and everything, but this is just insane. Look at this small ass enter key. This is just the entire length of my last finger. This is just insane. This is pretty standard though. Besides the Japanese keyboard, you can replace this with a Toshiba spare. Although don't get a part for the Qosmio F20 or F25 because it's black. Just get one from a satellite since it has the same exact function, key layout, and everything. So just replace it with a satellite keyboard. It'll be exactly the same, feel the same, blah, blah, blah. But the design portion's not over yet. Look at this. So, do you see anything strange at first glance? Well, here's what the laptop's main selling point is. This was a low-cost laptop. I managed to track down some like popular Japanese retailers that would have sold this thing, and they priced this thing fairly low compared to what was sold internationally. This would have been sold around the same price as a new like Acer Aspire would be sold now. This is like mid-range prices in Japan. Meanwhile, if you go to like Newegg or something, whoever kept it archived, like whatever listing, but they sold it pretty expensive around the world compared to this. This is like half the price. I'm not even joking. This is literally half the price of what the F20 was sold as worldwide. This is just insane how they were able to keep the price so low. But I guess Japan got the good stuff so that we got the shit. Although I prefer the black paint, to be honest, because it's yellow proof. The speakers here are circular, not just the design, but also the speakers themselves. But that's true of any speaker, except for a few that I can not name of. There are some that are oval or some, I don't know. I'm not going to go into the whole speaker thing right now. I'm not in the mood. You can see here, though, that they didn't even want to hide that you can remove this clip thing to access the keyboard. You do have to remove a screw in the back on both hinge covers, but it's not a big deal. This whole piece feels very solid. It feels like it's part of the whole case, which is just insane. But I'm not even getting to the main attraction yet. The speakers are part of the main attraction, but that's not even part of it. This section right here is the main attraction, the main event. You can see this right here. These two buttons are for your brightness. You can raise or lower your brightness without having to use some weird function thing. It's really cool that it's just right there on the spot, although you can see right here, you can also use the function to do that. It's kind of strange, but I guess it's up to preference. Like, they didn't cheapen out on that, which I think is really nice of them. However, one thing that you don't get on the keyboard is dedicated media controls, such as play, pause, stop, rewind, fast forward, record, and minimize and maximize. Although that's not really for video. This is more like for photos or a web page. So that can come in real handy sometimes, especially for people who are like working on a Microsoft Word document or like normal productivity use. These two buttons are great, although I suspect they won't be too useful for multimedia, maybe for like viewing photos, but I think it'd be more, but because generally photos at this time were low quality because the cameras were bad usually, so I don't think people would have been spending too much time using this feature on home photos, to be honest with you. But for like ProRes photos or I don't know, just movies or something, or no, not even video. They wouldn't really do that because I don't see the appeal of zooming into video. unless it's like super high quality and there's like something hidden or the CIA is trying to do an investigate. I don't fucking know. But I do know that zooming in will come in great handy with Microsoft Office and other productivity applications, and of course web browsing, which I think this is extremely important, so you don't have to go into the menu of web browsers and have to do a manual zoom. So having it right here at your fingertips is extremely important, especially in a laptop, because since people are going to be lugging this thing around left and right, they're going to want to have like an easier access to make their working environment a lot more simple and intuitive. But let's talk about these two buttons. This button, both of these actually. Oh, I did not want to do that. I accidentally turned on the machine because the battery can still hold a charge. Fuck. These two buttons are very strange. First of all, Qosmio AV Center was also an instant on application, which means these three buttons turn on the computer. If like on this computer, Qosmio AV Center is well gone, that means these three buttons are just standard power buttons. But let's say if Qosmio AV Center was installed and this was the factory image, or I guess also this is a Qosmio F25, and I think it's called Qosmio Player in the States. I forget. Whatever the application was, I know they had an American version because otherwise these buttons wouldn't even be there or something. But I know for sure they both Japan and America had like an instant on function for Toshiba's um, home video software, so you can actually turn this on to watch TV without even powering on the laptop completely. Instead of loading the entire operating system, it loads an embedded operating system that allows you to watch cable, antenna TV, or use a video game console at your desire. So that's kind of cool. Instant on isn't like a TV. It's almost like a TV. You still got to do a little bit of booting. You have to wait a bit for it to load into the instant on function. It's not exactly what you think, but it is still pretty convenient, although I wouldn't use it too much because I don't know if it can damage the computer or not. I know software generally doesn't damage computers, it just damages the hard drive or storage device, but I don't want to take the risk, you know what I mean? But yeah, this button would allow you to connect anything to your TV tuner connector, which allows you to connect a console, an antenna, cable, box, anything. But this button can just play CDs and DVDs. That's not that uncommon of a feature, but for instant on TV, that is not common at all. So that's very cool. But as I mentioned before, these buttons do standard multimedia things in both the instant on thing and on the operating system on multiple applications. But the record button is extremely interesting. It works with Windows Media Center and with Toshiba's Qosmio AV Center and whatever the American version was. I forget because I don't have a Qosmio with a factory image. None of them that I have do. But this record button works on that to record your TV, or I guess you can also record your cable box, antenna, or a video game console, which is where this thing can become especially interesting if it can output a high quality video or a sufficiently quality video. So you can technically capture your video game console, run from real hardware, and possibly record yourself doing a playthrough or speedrun of the game. So you can literally use this thing to make YouTube videos of let's play of retro games or your thing, or emulating games, or no, that would just be screen recording using an application on your computer. But you can literally not even emulate games and use real hardware to do speedruns or long plays or whatever of retro games that you do for your YouTube channel. This can come especially in handy, especially from a retro modern perspective. This is really useful. This feature should be on modern laptops because nobody is paying attention how important it is for many people to want to record games and stuff from a real console without having to go through the trouble to emulate games and do all this shit. So having a button right here and the TV tuner port that you can connect an AV port thing to it, it's become so useful. Honestly, this is the main appeal of the laptop. But for the price point that it was in Japan, this would have been an insane feature that I think contributed to how well it sold in Japan.
But this is just insane how I was able to sell so well for that friggin' price. I find that absolutely amazing how many features are packed in this one area, and it's not like they didn't put emphasis on it. One thing I like about Dynabook Japan is that even after Sharp purchased the rights to Toshiba's PC division, they kept up the drivers and everything to Toshiba's legacy computers, and that includes this. But unlike internationally, they kept up the original product sites from like 2006 or any year for every Dynabook product ever made and sold in Japan. So you can find anything, all the information that was new for this thing. So I was able to find out so much, and it turns out they did put a lot of emphasis on this one panel, taking and cropping a photo of this one section right here as the main selling point of the laptop. Brilliant marketing. And I can just tell how well it sold in Japan because this thing is extremely common on Japanese domestic marketplaces. This is a very nice laptop, and I have no idea why it's not like noticed by collectors or enthusiasts. This has to be known. This laptop is so cool that everybody should know about this thing. Everybody. This is just such a good laptop all around that it should be like a must get for collectors or enthusiasts, retro gamers, etc., etc. I bet you this thing's if this thing becomes popular and subsequently like my YouTube channel or something, or I guess the other way around, my YouTube channel becomes popular and subsequently this thing, then I just want this thing to gain exposure one way or the other because I want this thing to become more common and be exported more because this thing may just be the best JDM laptop of the modern era. This is the best 21st century PC that you could probably import from Japan. This could be especially useful even in modern scenarios if done correctly. This is so cool, and I think I'm really going to use this if I wanted to like film a console. If I ever review the Philips CDI in the future or something, this can be especially helpful for like so I don't even have to bother to setting up complicated emulators that have like weird files or DLL errors that I have to install another DLL file. It's just this can be so useful, honestly. This is just insanely good, and I cannot believe this thing has been sitting in my room for the past 1.5 years without me even paying attention to it or servicing it or anything. So I'm finally happy to be taking a look at this thing. So before I get to the ports, right away I want to notice something. Zooming out on this thing, look at that. Look at how much space you have. Look at this minimalistic design. Sure, this thing has an in-your-face volume slider that I refrained from discussing on purpose. This thing is very minimalistic. Look at that. Look at how basic it is, but in a good way. It feels like an open, like airy, I don't know, it just fits well into any home. It really contrasts to my floor, but also blends in with my floor. Look at that. I don't know, something about it, contrary to every other laptop I have, it just looks different. It's kind of like the MacBook of the 2000s. I mean, sure, they had PowerBooks and shit, but those were like leading the bland bandwagon. But this thing is like anti-bland, but it's still like very appealing. It just looks like such an attractive laptop that I just want to have in my household in the display. I mean, this won't make a great conversation piece because let's face it, this thing is obsolete and most people aren't familiar with just random PCs from the 2000s. These aren't exactly on the other side of the U curve just yet. These are still in the bottom of the U curve. But this is just so cool. Its design, its color. I mean, the black version's cool and all, but I don't know. I don't have too many other laptops with this white paint scheme. Wait a minute. Actually, I only have one other one. My iBook G3. I actually have two iBook G3s. The later model and the clamshell. And this is just so nice. It's just unlike the iBook G3, the second model. This one has like some good performance and compatibility that can be used in a modern day scenario, even Windows XP. Like, yeah, this is still a very useful laptop if you use it for the right stuff, and it has so much good stuff that I haven't even gotten into detail yet. I haven't even turned this thing on, and I'm already like complimenting this thing. I'm not biased at all. This thing has some kind of quality I can't describe with words at this moment. But just looking at this thing in general, just look at that. It looks like a nice productivity multimedia. Anything you want to make it. It's like a blank slate. Not by the color, so you paint it. No, no, no. Don't do that. It's a beautiful laptop. Don't ever ruin this blank slate. It's like, it's just, it can be whatever you want it to be. A gaming laptop, a multimedia laptop, and a productivity laptop. It can be anything you want it to be. Because of this clean design, its nice edges, its finish. It just looks so great. This is the most well engineered Toshiba laptop ever made. Fuck the libretto, the little sub notebooks that get so much credit. Toshiba's I don't know, their first satellites, their Satellite Pro model. No, people need to pay more attention to the Qosmios and especially this model. Just look at that. Even the top half has some nice style. People nowadays would complain about a thick bezel, but seeing a thick bezel like this just adds to its design. It's like a bezel that you want to be there, if you know what I mean. It's like this laptop has flair without actually having flair, if you know what I mean. Later on, Toshiba made the Satellite slash Satigo X200 series, which had like a red paint scheme on top, but everything underneath besides the lid was a normal Satellite P200. But still, this thing has like a different kind of flair. It's kind of like what Apple's doing, but not horribly. This is like if Apple was cool and innovative, but not like they weren't or are. But this is just if Apple had like a more experimental taste. This appeals to everybody. I can see why the white paint scheme just sold so well in Japan, while the black paint scheme version around that sold around the world just didn't sell too well, even despite the price or the other things that it had. Negating all of that, this thing sold well probably because of its white paint, its minimalism. It's just its overall design is so nice. That's so minimalist yet so in your face at the same time that it's so pleasant. You can interpret it as both exaggerated and minimalist. You can take it both ways. You can say how this is all symmetrical and minimalist, this everything here, but then this is exaggerated here. But it's just done so well. It appeals to everybody. They always say that like you will always offend the one person, but I don't know of anybody that can say they hate this thing. Just look at this design and tell me you hate it. I know you're probably going to be trolling or something. There's going to be trolls in the comments eventually if my channel gets popular enough, but look, even all trolling aside, just admit you like this thing. Because this thing just has a flair that I just cannot describe with words. It just has this design, this style that I just can't explain with words. This is what really kills the review. There's so many things that you can only interpret about a laptop in person, or at least with a ProRes 4K Ultra HD video that I am unable to provide you with because I don't have the money for a ProRes thing or money for an editing software to accompany this. So I am forced to give you this very undetailed tour and review of such an amazing underrated laptop that nobody knows about. This is a hidden gem right here. I hope this becomes a must-have and a household name in the future for retro collectors and any enthusiast alike. This thing has to become known. Toshiba's entire Qosmio line should become known. Why does nobody ever talk about Qosmios, even though they sell like wildfire on eBay? This is kind of underground anyway. We're like underground collectors, and this thing is just one of those. Especially having a JDM one here. This is a rare version. Not in Japan, but here. It's just hard to find a way to export one of these from Japan. It would be much easier if you spoke Japanese or something, but still. This is just so cool, and especially, I think this can even appeal to weebs, because this is, you could even watch anime in like high quality on this thing. Anything, movies. Yeah, they have no problem with you watching anime on this thing. This thing is ready to take it on. This thing has a very good resolution, and I'll explain what resolution it has later on in the video. But besides that, let's just get to the ports. Now, one last thing that's only going to take like 1 minute is the hinge. As I close this, it actually does not resist. It's not exactly on par with like a MacBook or anything. It is still resistant. Like, just watch this. You see how it goes up like that? It's probably going to snap in the future. I will lubricate it eventually. Once I replace the keyboard, I might as well just go ahead and lubricate the hinges while I'm at that. But I want to use a test laptop because I've never actually done too many lubrications on hinges before. Very few of my laptops have been re-lubricated, or I guess lubricated, since I don't know if they came like that from the factory lubricated. But yeah, the hinge is not too bad. Let's get to the ports because this is long overdue. Okay, let's start by moving this camera this way and refocusing the camera so that the light exposure is much better, and this way we can take a look at this because this is the New Year special. We need to make this a good episode. VGA out. Okay, this is a very standard port on pretty much every laptop, even to this day. Some of them still have this port. S-video out. You may say, oh, this is a pretty interesting and special port and very multimedia-esque, but actually it's not exactly uncommon. This is actually an extremely common port on many laptops, even non-multimedia laptops, so it doesn't mean much to me. That's a pretty standard port. This port on the highest end model sold in Japan and the international F25 and F20, I'm pretty sure this is an express card port, but underneath you still have a PCMCIA. Mine does not have an express card. This is just a plastic mold made to just fill in that space. You can see above each port, excluding the cards, that you can see that the ports have their symbols here. That way, it's easier for people to know what port it is. Now to the front. You can see here right away that we have some interesting stuff. Toshiba has done a really good job at engineering at integrating the IR receiver into this little assembly here that includes the Wi-Fi switch and IEEE 1394 digital port, also known as Mini Firewire. This is a very nice port, and it's very underutilized, but it's very useful for somebody that wants it. It's always good to have this port, but it's not rare at all. It's very common on many laptops from the 2000s, all the way up to the early 2010s. Like the 1394 was very common. This right here is actually a triple card reader, as you can see by these three indicator lights. You can put in an SD card, Memory Stick Pro, or an XD card. Many consumer cameras that you could buy at Walmart or something back in the day used XD card as the dominant format. You may think, oh no, SD is the most successful format. Yeah, nowadays. But no, XD card was extremely common in the 2000s, so it's always good to have that port right here. And Memory Stick Pro was also somewhat also equivalent in terms of like popularity. So instead of having to go to Circuit City, Best Buy, or CompUSA to get an adapter for this, you have it right here. You don't have to spend the extra money. You already got it built into your laptop, which is cool. But look at this. SD card. Sure, the port was still common back then, but it's extremely common now. Back then, common, but now very common. So this, having an SD card port here is extremely cool and adds to the value of this thing, even in modern standards. This right here, microphone jack and headphone jack. Or you can use this as SPDIF out, I'm pretty sure. It's not specifically certified for it, but it does support it through that port. You can see right here the model number is the F20/573LS. Something you may not know about Japanese Dynabook laptops is that they had a slash after every model number to indicate its more specific configuration. Kind of like HP has the whole CTO, CL, or like different variations, or like Acer has WSM, WSMI, WLMI, LMI, you know what I mean. But this is like basically Dynabook's thing. The slash and then the designation after that is the more specific model number. So there's that. It's not a port, but I want to cover that because nobody else will. This side, we have possibly a very important port just hidden around here. You may mistake it for a headphone jack, but it is nothing like a headphone jack. If anything, this is the main attraction of the laptop. That port allows you to connect an adapter for many many different formats of video and audio all combined into one. You can connect an adapter to coaxial. You can connect AV, or I'm pretty sure S video in too. But I know you can definitely connect an adapter to AV, so you can plug in a video game console, camera, VHS camcorder, or camera. You can connect anything via AV and connect it through an adapter to this port. It's not included with the laptop, but you can just run down to like a Circuit City, CompUSA, or Best Buy back then to get it. But of course, that's not how it is nowadays. You just have to go on eBay. But it's not uncommon as hell. But still, this is extremely awesome. This port right here will be the most utilized port if collectors were to get their hands on it. Now, these two are standard USB 2.0 ports. It's great to have a 2.0 on this laptop, but it has two of them right here. It does have an additional one, but still, it's cool to have at least one. So this thing is already overkill. This right here is the modem port, because since dial-up was still very common in Japan and the States and the world alike, it's still very important to have a modem port on a laptop from 2004, 2005, and 2006. Even if the laptop is closed, because this thing can use the CD player functionality, you can still raise or lower the volume even with the lid closed. How cool is that? So you can, this is like so well engineered. You can use the freaking volume slider even when the lid is closed. I don't know what scenario I may use this in, most likely for CD playback, but wow. This is just attention to detail right here. Instead of using some cumbersome, clicky, badly made buttons on the front, no, they made this. This is very cool and useful. Good job, Toshiba. We respect you for this. Can't believe you don't make laptops anymore. But they did get bland towards the end, so I guess it doesn't matter. The whole legacy was forgotten about later on, even at Toshiba themselves. You do have a freaking high-end DVD-R drive. Yes, that is right. You can also use CD-RW on this thing. This is a high-end drive for even 2004, 2005, and 2006. This is just incredible. Although this laptop was announced in 2005 and produced all the way to 2006. 2004, I just said because many other laptops that year had this feature right here. So, yeah, this is pretty standard nowadays. You take this for granted, but back then, this was an insane luxury for a laptop. Very awesome. Now, this right here is a Kensington lock. Very standard. Every single laptop made has this thing right here. This is your secondary TV tuner adapter. This one is made primarily for coaxial. One cool thing about this laptop that I think is also extremely important to collectors if you're watching this video is that it's region free. All of the video aspects of this are region free, and you can configure it in BIOS on what you gotta use or what you want to use. Whether it is NTSC Japan, NTSC US and Americas, or if it's PAL. This thing accepts PAL input, allowing you to connect every video game console in existence to this thing, both via this port and the aforementioned port over here. But still, this port and that port over there are the main reason to get this laptop. I don't know why they're not positioned in the same place, but I suspect that they put the other one at the front because it will be used more often, because it's more versatile than this. You don't have to use this, but this is a more secure connection to make sure that you don't have RF interference. But still, that is really cool. Region-free video. So this is just the best part of the laptop. You can plug in any region of TV except for SECAM. But I'm pretty sure SECAM is the most uncommon shit there is, and I'm pretty sure there's no consoles ever made for that format and barely any electronics either. I don't know. or maybe I just misunderstood what SECAM was, and it's not even a region of TV, so never mind. Uh, this is your AC adapter, nothing too special, but you do have an Ethernet port for people who are richer and have broadband or whatever, and you also have an additional USB 2.0 port, so that's the one that I mentioned before. There is one extra if you want it. That's it for ports. But let's look at the bottom real quick, because we're not done with some little details here and there. First of all, removing the battery. You see the battery right here, right? Well, you can actually remove these two to the side and pull this out. So not too standard. I mean, not too special. You may think it's a little weird now. There's usually just one latch you use. It's a self-locking mechanism. But this one has a manual lock in case you don't want it to fall out in case this fails or something. But no, this thing has an actual manual lock here. There is this label here. I know it's a warning of some sorts, but as it's in Japanese, I have no idea what this says. Maybe somebody who understands Japanese can translate that for me, but since this is at an odd angle that I can't work with, I can't really photograph that too well or anything. I'm not even going to bother. But besides this, you have the standard stickers that you would have seen on other Toshiba laptops. This is on every Toshiba laptop ever made, up until I think 2012. This sticker is on pretty much every laptop, nothing special. But yes, I know you can see the product key, but this does not work on any installation CD. This is OEM for this laptop only, so that product key won't serve any purpose. So I'm not going to bother censoring the product key. So, look at this. You see anything special about this? Maybe it's a little fuzzy, and I know it will be a more fuzzy through editing, but maybe I can just move the camera this way temporarily. There we go. You can see there, it says Toshiba, right? You see this is the sticker. You get the model number and everything else, but it just gets a lot crazier than that, because you can see here, Dynabook Qosmio F20/573LS, right? You have all your regulation stuff here, but wait, there's more. You see this thing right here? On the internationally sold F20 and F25, it says made in China. You know what it says right here? It says made in Japan. This laptop, whether or not its components were actually made in Japan, most likely made in China, this laptop itself was assembled in Japan. Yes, that's right. This is not only JDM in the laptop's color and CPU. I'll explain that in a bit. But this is also exclusive to Japan in terms that it was made in Japan, or at least assembled in Japan. This is crazy. This is just out of this world. This is the main reason to get this laptop. It is more reliable than the international version, which I think suffers from a little bit of issues, but since I haven't worked on too many Qosmios, as they're not the most common things in the world, I don't really know what usually goes wrong with these just yet. And maybe 1 year I will, because I've grown so much in the last year with my channel and my collection that I just did not even expect to be at this point. I've gotten laptops that I could not even dream I could even find for sale. But yeah, anyway, this right here is really, really cool. Now, let's take a look at some features inside the OS itself, and let's begin with the test. Alright, so here we are at the Toshiba Qosmio F20's screen. I have almost every part of the screen inside frame. I just wanted to leave this section down here visible on purpose. Here we go, powering this thing on, but wait, if you press the arrow keys, you can freeze the installation and select a few options. You can select booting from hard drive, CD drive, floppy disk, or network. Of course, we want to boot from hard drive, but wait, before we do that, you can press the escape key or F12 key, I'm pretty sure, to access BIOS, but that would require a restart. So let me do that real quick and demonstrate. So let me just do this and hold F12. This should bring up the menu in a second. I just have to keep on spamming or pressing it down. Or it just did that. Okay. It wasn't F12. It may be escape. I forget. I haven't done much on this in a while. There we go. It's escape. Okay, remember that. It's escape. Okay, check system. Ignore what that says. It means nothing. Just press F1. Boom. You're in BIOS. You can see it's quite before New Year's, but I want to release this episode on New Year's because I know how lazy I am at editing and uploading videos to YouTube, so I'm just doing this in advance to prevent myself from fucking myself up. So I will freaking upload this on New Year's. I promise you, I will dedicate the New Year's to this video. Okay, battery save mode, full power. You can actually select how much energy you want the battery to use, whether you want it to use more performance, like if you're connected to an AC outlet, or for battery saver, so you can reduce or throttle the performance of the laptop in compensation for more battery time, possibly for more productivity or whatever. Connected to a wall, please. Never run a laptop off a battery powered. I know they're meant to use a battery, but still, just don't do it. I'll explain why in a future video all about that. PCI Express Link ASPM. That's not important. I know what that is, but I'm not going to bore you with that. It's not important. You don't need to change anything about that. Password, not registered. Don't ever register a BIOS password. If you put in a BIOS password, you are the son of the devil. Why would you put a BIOS password on a laptop? Are you retarded? Don't ever do that. There's no reason to. Don't do it. Don't do it unless your freaking 3-year-old knows how to access the BIOS. But I don't think they do, so just don't even bother putting a BIOS password. You're not hiding anything in BIOS. It's BIOS. There's no personal info in BIOS. Don't put a fucking password in BIOS. I cannot stress that enough. But yes, as of RAM, you do have 512 megabytes total. It came stock. And I think that's cool. Now, here, boot priority. You can select the different boot sequences. I can actually scroll down here. Unfortunately, on most BIOS, like Phoenix BIOS, you can just type out whatever date you want. You actually have to press spacebar to increase the number and backspace to reduce the number. So you can't actually put in digits. It's kind of stupid, but it's intuitive. It's not bad. It's just, it's not what I'm used to. Yeah, you can see here all the different selections for your battery saving thing. Auto, I'm not going to go into that. Not registered. Of course, you still use spacebar and backspace to change the values, space to increment, and backspace to decrease. And you can do that with the boot priority thing too, and the network boot protocol too. You can change that to the other ones too. Display, power on display, auto selected. I think I want to disable that, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm just doing a review. LCD display stretch enabled. Now watch when I disable it. You see that? Now, the pixels are actually lined up to the actual resolution of the laptop, so it looks a little bit compressed. But let me just enlarge that again, because there's no reason to disable that. It's just easier, you know what I mean? But you can tell it's stretched because it's fuzzier. It's not like actual pixels, because if you see this in person, this looks like actually like crisp when it's not stretched. But yeah, never mind. I want it stretched. I'm sorry. TV type, NTSC US. It obviously would be set to NTSC J when it was actually sold, but I changed it to US for the future when I use this thing to connect consoles for possibly recording footage for reviews. But yep, you can change it, and if you, in case you don't believe me, look at that. NTSC Japan, PAL, NTSC US. I'm not even kidding. Auto power on. Oh, wait a minute. Executable disable bit capability not available. You can't even change that value. Auto power on. Alarm time. Alarm time? What? I don't know what alarm time is, but I should probably know since I'm supposed to be an expert at this shit. But diagnostic mode is disabled. But yeah, let's not go into that. We don't need to do a diagnostic thing. This thing is fully working, and if you were to ever go into diagnostic mode, there has to be some serious wear on this laptop or something wrong with it in order for that to happen. So you press end. On any normal keyboard, you can just press end, but on this thing, since it has a Japanese keyboard, you press the function key and the right arrow key, which has end, and then you press Y to save and exit. But I will now power on this laptop to put it underneath a laptop so this thing doesn't actually overheat, so it can get as much air as it can possibly get. So hang on. Alright, so now that I got a laptop underneath to prevent overheating, let's start it up. Yet again, without interrupting the booting. speaker already hidden. You see that? Now wait, just hold up a bit. Let me explain a few things right off the bat. The speakers, I don't know if the camera could capture the speakers' quality, but they sound, oh boy. The only thing that beats this thing in terms of audio is the Dell XPS M2010, which is over there off camera. This thing has some really good speakers with actual bass that I don't think the camera can even, or the microphone in the camera could even capture. This has some really good speakers, and it just has two. It doesn't have like secondary like surround speakers like on 2008 laptops. Well, not 2008 laptops. Ultra high end multimedia media center, the last of the bunch, Screen Wars 2008 multimedia media center laptops. But yeah, this thing right here, it does have Harman Kardon speakers, although that means nothing to me in terms of speakers. It's literally just a brand to me, because on other laptops with those different brands that manufacture them, I don't really see a difference. But on this one, it actually kind of lives up to Harman Kardon standards. So this is kind of cool. Now, about the display. On camera, it doesn't look anything special. And by the way, I did manage to salvage the wallpapers, and I will upload those to the web archive or some sort of non-compressing archive to preserve these wallpapers, because they look absolutely beautiful. But here's something. The display in person. Oh, this display is better than a fucking orgasm. I said that. Yes, I did. I never said anything quite like that on my channel, but this is the best screen I've ever used besides my 144Hz Acer Predator Helio 700 display. Look at this glorious screen. You can't see this on the camera, by the way, because I don't have a ProRes camera that can capture the glory of this camera, but in person, this screen looks so good in person. I just cannot describe it with words. I am absolutely impressed, especially that this thing was released in 2005. This thing came out in 2005, mind you, and it has this good of a resolution. And to be more precise on the laptop's resolution, let us go to properties and demonstrate you what resolution it has. You see that? It has 1280 by 800 pixels. Most laptops, even until like 2007 or 8, had 1024 by 768 displays. This one goes above and beyond with a 1280 by 800 display. Overkill, especially for the time. This is an amazing display. Its colors are vibrant, and I can just... This is just an insane laptop. And I can just see how well it is with this wallpaper. Because as you can see, the yellow contrasts the red quickly, but then again, they are kind of on the same level. But then the green easily contrasts the yellow and red, and the blue sky. You can't see this on camera, but in person, this thing just has such a good display, and the colors are, oh my gosh. This display is just so high quality. And by the way, this display was manufactured by Samsung, and I'm not sure of too many other laptops with this quality of a display. Hey, Windows XP laptops didn't have too bad of a display, but they were 1024 by 768, so this thing is just overkill. This is incredible for a display. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. This display is the best display of any laptop from this time period, and possibly up until like 2008. Notebook Maximizer shouldn't be a PDF, I'm pretty sure. No, it should just be like that. If it doesn't load the system information, then something's wrong. Whoa. This is an American exclusive, or possibly European too. This is an international Toshiba. This is a Toshiba international program. This is only packed in OEM with international Toshiba models not sold in Japan. This laptop in its original JDM factory image did not come with Notebook Maximizer. So, I am absolutely impressed to see the correct information of this laptop displayed. It says here Dynabook Qosmio F20/573LS, the correct model number. And it has the correct serial number too if you paid attention earlier in the video. This is insane. Now, this doesn't have a part number because this is the laptop as a whole. The part number is each individual part. But of course, that's not how it works. That was never actually filled in on any notebook maximizer thing on any computer. See this right here? This is a pretty high capacity hard drive for the time. It's not too crazy. I mean, it's just a bit under 100. It says available space, but the disk as a whole is mostly a 100 gigabyte drive, I'm pretty sure. Oh wait, never mind. It says down here 74.53 is the total size. Then why did it say available? Huh? That's odd. But you can see, even that capacity is overkill for this laptop. That barely took up any space on the disk just by that little pie chart. But you can see everything else here is correct. It's an Intel Celeron M processor at 1.4 gigahertz. That is correct. Wait a minute then. Speed 1400 megahertz. What? 1400 megahertz what? The video or the RAM? What? What is it specifying? The hard drive? I don't know. Just tell me in the comments because I'm not familiar with Notebook Maximizer. I know how specs work on laptops, but it already said the speed of the processor, the clock speed right here, so what? Okay, memory. It has 504 megabytes of RAM, but BIOS said 512. Maybe that extra space is actually reserved, and 504 is all that's actually is remaining for the operating system. I don't know. I guess there's space reserved for BIOS or something. I'm not sure. Video, though, of course, it detects that it's Intel's integrated graphics, so that is absolutely correct. So everything else, yeah, it's a little weird, but yeah, it's mostly correct information. There's like different things that's put into account here. The battery the status here, it says that it's great. Battery remaining 91%. As you can see, it's charging down here, although I don't think it can pick it up too well. Charge status, charging. Life remaining, not applicable because it's not one of those newer standards of batteries. It's one of the older style. But yeah, it is correct. It's displaying the correct information. It shows here like the different accessories compatible with this thing. Bonus applications about Toshiba Online, user type, update now, update options, yeah, different shit. Shop now, they'll probably take you to the website. Oh, yep, okay, not right now. But as about, let's go to about, let's see what it displays. Let's see. Oh, that's just about the application itself. Of course, this website right here is a dead link. Okay. User type, okay, that's not important. None of this shit is important. Okay, so that's about it with Notebook Maximizer. These things up top are just different shortcuts to Windows XP's already installed shit. User's guide. We can't view that right now. So let me install some benchmarks and everything we need to further test this thing, and then we'll continue the video. Alright, welcome to the benchmarks portion of the video. This is roughly like a 1 week interval in between this and the previous footage shot. So hope you enjoy. Had to really cut some corners to get this working. Main reason being that I couldn't get a proper Wi-Fi driver installed, despite the previous installation actually managing to browse the web just fine. This is Service Pack 3. I have no reason for this thing to not browse the web, but something's up. But after all the hassle I went through, I was able to get benchmarks on here. So we will begin with some simpler benchmarks and then get to the more complex stuff. Alright, it appears that it finished bench benchmarking here. So, let's see. These must be the final scores. Yes, so this is all the information. Okay. System. Some of this information may be incorrect, mainly due because not everything is properly installed here. I don't have DirectX installed. Not visiting that webpage. So that is Crystal Mark. So now we'll be doing 3D Mark. It's not going to be too long. These are pretty interesting, so it'll be kind of cool. Let us begin. Alright, 3D Mark has finished here. That's the final score. So, I can actually view the details, although it just takes me to 3D Mark's document. Nothing particularly special here. I suppose we're done here. But that was our benchmarks. We don't need anything too crazy, that's all there was. And well, I think that's it. I don't have any games to test right now. I do have Half-Life 1 for PC. But the reason why I'm not going to install it on here is because the opening area is part of the game, but takes a lot of movement just to progress to get to like the action of the game, which is where you would see the potential of this computer. But let's assume that it runs relatively great on here because it's able to view YouTube videos at 480p. That is before I had to reinstall Windows XP, and now I can't even watch YouTube or connect to the internet. But I suppose it's just a driver issue that I can fix eventually if I find the right driver or something. I don't know. For now, that's what we have. I try to give you a better review with some benchmarks that would entertain, and unfortunately, that was all I was able to provide you with. Coming future videos, I will provide you with more stuff, more stuff to see, to review. I mean, more computers, more electronics in general. But for now, this review will have to do. This is a New Year's special. This was mainly done because I didn't have a space in the Scrutinized text series to make this a full video, a more thorough review, so I had to slot this somewhere and review it because it was rather special to me. So I did it anyway. So yeah, that is about it for this. One thing to note though before I shut this down is that I can test out the speakers. So let's go to control panel so you can hear some sounds, and just so you can hear how good this thing sounds like. That may be too loud, but let's give it a shot. Really great speakers, to be honest with you. But that's about it. That wraps it up for this video. So yeah, this is a rare variation of the Qosmio F20. This is the original Japanese mid-range model sold to the masses in Japan. It was a bestseller there, but outside of Japan it was an utter failure. This thing is a nice computer. It's actually one of my favorites. I already rambled on about it earlier in the video before the more professional part, which this is. But I will do one final segment before I call it quits. This is another computer that I forgot to mention. This is a Toshiba Qosmio G50, which you can control with your finger. This thing isn't exactly a complete system. It has missing plastic, missing optical drive bezels, and some missing screws in the bottom. Once I get everything necessary to restore this thing, I will review it. But that's not all. I have this Alienware Aurora M9700 that I will review soon. All it needs is the correct charger, and then it will be reviewable. It already has a solid state drive inside, sufficient to review. I will also review this Samsung Series 7 Gamer, my previous main PC, which actually was very useful for half a year to play games and stuff. It's definitely capable, but since I was running off of the original hard drive, the hard drive died. So until I get a high capacity solid state drive that this thing can actually handle while being fast enough, I will just have to let it sit, and I'll be using my main gaming rig instead. This right here is the Sony Vaio VGN AR250G, or just the VGN AR series. This is a 17-inch laptop with a TV tuner and AV port. I cannot review this one yet because I don't have the recovery discs for it and they're extremely rare. This down here is my main retro gaming rig. This mess here is actually what I'm using this for. I'm doing some reorganizing in the house, which required me to move this up here for a moment. So, this will also be an interesting review soon. I have everything for it. It's a nice computer. It's working great. Now, the next computer that I will review is underneath that Dell Studio, which I already reviewed. A Gateway PA6 or PA2, I forget. I think it's a PA2. Another future review is this right here. That is a Toshiba Satellite X200 with SLI, and underneath that is a newer Core i7 Dell XPS 17-inch laptop. Although before I review those, I'll probably review this here, which is an Acer Aspire 1700. I'm going to try to get a hard drive that fits it, since it requires a full-size one, but I'm going to try to get a solid-state drive for it.
Thank you guys for watching this long and boring video. Uh, this has been the New Year special of my YouTube channel. This is actually going to be a precedent that will form future videos on my channel. I hope that I can make more videos like this, but more refined and less rambling and random shit. Now, the next video will be a review on the Sega Saturn, and after that I will introduce big changes to the series and possibly some other content that might be brand new. So please consider subscribing to my channel if you're interested in computers or my other type of content. But don't subscribe for the It Show.